Hi students, as I am not here today taking my daughter to the doctor, I wanted to just make sure we were all on the same page for today. So the main goal today, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be spending time making the final touches on your court presentations that take place tomorrow. Remember, everybody needs to be prepared to present tomorrow. Um, I'm not here, I won't be checking your warm-up, but nevertheless, you should still be familiar with the differences between legislative courts and constitutional courts. Remember, your group projects begin tomorrow. The quiz on them is next week. You want to start thinking about what type of current event you'll be doing for Monday. The topic is the Supreme Court, and you know about the longer due items, the court case cards quiz, and the AP test in April and May. I'm not going to do some of these things because I'm not here, but what I want to do real quick is just kind of go through some of the notes on the federal attorneys, which we didn't get into yesterday. So this is just a little bit of review, but when we talked a lot about judges and the whole court structure. We didn't really talk about the actual attorneys, who are the people that argue on behalf of the government. The top guy, as you know, is the Attorney General. And as you can see, here he is right there, Eric Holder. He's the head of the Justice Department. You know, just like any other official, he is appointed by the President with the Senate's consent. Good old checks and balances. His number two is what's called the Solicitor General. And the current Solicitor General, his name is Donald Verrilli, Jr. Now, the Solicitor General, why is this important? Two reasons. First, it's on the AP test every year. They always have a question about the Solicitor General. All right. Second, this is the person who is responsible for arguing cases at the Supreme Court on behalf of the U.S. government. So if the U.S. government is a party in a case, if they're being sued, or even if they're not being sued, they can still make arguments. This is the person that is at the Supreme Court, and he or she, you know, can be at the court many times throughout the year arguing cases. Next part, yep. The Solicitor General helps decide which cases will come up before the Supreme Court, which ones the U.S. government is going to challenge, and they often help decide which, you know, position the government's going to take on individual cases. And sometimes the Solicitor General is referred to as the 10th Justice because of their influence there. They're at the Supreme Court more than any other person. Technically, they're not part of the Supreme Court. I mean, they represent the prosecution, so to speak, or the defendant in some cases. And so they are presenting the government's side. All right. The last set here are the U.S. attorneys. And remember, we have 94 district courts, and in each of those districts, you need prosecutors, district attorneys, or in this case, U.S. attorneys. And so these are people who are responsible for prosecuting the criminal cases before each of those 94 district courts and the courts of appeal. Even though, as we said, 95% of the cases are done through plea bargaining. Their job is to represent the U.S. government, whether it's in a civil case or criminal case, and this is a position that is appointed by the President, and this is a position, like I was just saying, the President does appoint, and the Senate must confirm. We will talk more about what senatorial courtesy is next week, but just know that when the President is appointing federal attorneys, he is asking the senators in those states who they would prefer. It's not in the Constitution, but it's customary for the President to do. Since there are so many districts and so many federal attorneys, the President often asks for their recommendations. The judges, you know, we've talked about the judges before, but just to reiterate, appointed by the President, the Senate has to confirm them. The Constitutional Court judges, these people are the ones that hold their office during good behavior pretty much for life. The legislative courts, those Article I courts, don't get this awesome awesome perk of having your job forever. Just like any official, they can be impeached and removed by Congress. Very rare, hasn't happened very often. Remember, Congress does determine the compensation, the amount of money judges make, and not just Supreme Court justices, but all federal judges. But remember, this is really important. Their salary cannot be lowered during a judge's term in office, and we talked about why. If a judge had to worry about losing money if he decided a case in a way that Congress didn't like, that would lead to a decision that might not necessarily be very fair. And just to give you some perspective on how much judges make, just to give you some perspective, as I was saying, you'll notice the higher up you go in the federal judicial hierarchy, the more money you make. And you might see these numbers and be like, wow, that's a lot of money. And compared to most Americans, that is a lot of money. But when you are a really good lawyer, if you're working at a private law firm, I mean, you can easily make $500,000 a year, plus all sorts of benefits. Compared to being a judge, the money might not be as great for a judge, but hey, you get a tremendous amount of respect.